Okay, I need to confess something. I know I'm not alone in this. I am not alone. I love beer. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. Yes, I love beer. I know you probably love beer as a beer drinker. My tastes have grown. I used to be a light beer guy, which not gonna lie, I really used to love Coors Light. And here's my argument in my defense for Coors Light. It's like club soda with alcohol and a hint of beer flavoring. But if you have had the pleasure of having craft beer, you really get to explore all the various flavors of beer. Yes, all types. And I have friends that are such beer connoisseurs. I'm speaking about my friend Walter Areas, who works on our Film Threat YouTube channel. He will go out of his way to find a brewery to try a certain type of beer. This is the audience for the documentary Brewmance. And I have the director here, Christo Brock. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast, Christo. Pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Chris. I'm always happy to talk beer.
Well, I will say, first of all, the thing that really attracted me was your poster. I love this image of the heart. I think you have it. It's the heart with beer. It's okay. I love it. But you really get, this is, what I love about the doc is it's not only an exploration of beer, as there's you point out in the very beginning, it's very instructional. There are 4 ingredients to beer. That's it. You can make beer at home. But what was fascinating was you follow this group that are opening a brewery in Long Beach, which I have to go to. I'm spacing on the name of the brewery.
10 Mile and Liberation.
Okay. Just seeing their journey as being passionate about beer to we want to share our beer with the world was incredible. So how did this project start? And then how did you find them to follow them on their journey?
So I have a buddy who's from film school who's gotten into homebrewing, and we were out, hanging out one time, and he told me about one of these homebrew club meetings that he went to and he was a part of. And he was just telling me how they all get together and they all bring their own beer and they share their beer and then they tell everybody how they made it. And then there's like this kind of feedback. It's like this really interesting coming together of mostly dudes, but a few women, just to share ideas and to share, their beer. And I just kind of found this kind of unusual. And then I started doing a little bit of research and then came up with this thesis of maybe craft beer came about because of homebrewers like this. And so the more I did the research, the more I found that to be true, that beer in the 70s was terrible. It was all the same. It was Michelob and Budweiser and Schlitz, and it all tasted the same. And this whole craft beer movement came about from these restless homebrewers who decided they didn't want to drink the beer they had to buy and it was being sold to them. They were going to make their own, and that was sort of the beginnings of that craft beer movement, which over the last 40 years has completely changed what beer is. So we kind of went from being the country with the worst beer in the world to the country with the most interesting beer in the world, and beer that some people don't even consider beer. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. It's got bark and berries, and I just kind of felt that was kind of this interesting American story. And yeah,
what I love is you explore even sort of the flavors. I like a beer that has sort of almost like a fruitiness to it. There's a little it's interesting. And when I see when I'll go to some bar that's got like, I mean, you see all the taps and you're looking, it's just like, okay, what is the most obscure, weird thing that I can try? But so when you found this as a subject, it's interesting because you follow them through all the foibles of, well, that was water. Well, there you go. I was going to say, I thought, is that a beer?
Can't drink beer all the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time, not all the time.
But I mean, they go through all the, like, just as a small business owner myself, Film Threat being a small business, I really identified with their struggles to get things. I mean, just the challenges that they face, including from lawyers trying to derail the opening of their brewery. Can you discuss a little bit about, following them with their struggles, everything from just getting the air conditioner to work, to get to just the merch setup and just all the things that they had to just to get past the finish line of opening the place?
Well, I got to say, Chris, I kind of identify with this as well, because like as an independent filmmaker, like I'm a small business too, and I go through a lot of the same struggles that these brewers go through. Unfortunately, mine's just sort of a one-off film and they have this enduring brand. But the more I sort of got into the film, and this is one of the great things about making documentaries, is that you start off with sort of one direction and then it leads you down another path. And there are all these kind of like tendrils of the tree that lead you out into this like cool myriad of ideas and thoughts. And so one of the things that sort of came out in making this film is like, okay, craft beer is an American story. And part of this American story is like the entrepreneurism that's typically American. And I think that's one of the things that sort of makes us unique in the world, is that we're rebels, we're anti-authoritarian, we're like stubborn, we're pioneers, we're, people see an impossible dream and they decide we can do that. And that's kind of what a lot of these craft beer novices have to go through. Is like, even though there's a lot more information out there now, like how do you start up a craft brewery, unlike those early pioneers like the Ken Grossmans of Sierra Nevada, or Jim Cooks and Larry Bells, it's still, you have to figure things out because stuff goes wrong and there's like, oh, here's a problem I never thought I would have to encounter. But the thing that I think is interesting is that this American ethos that we have forces us to deal with that. And if you succeed, you figure it out. And if you don't figure it out, you fail. It's pretty simple.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned being an indie filmmaker. Having made independent films myself, you're kind of being entrepreneurial in the sense that every film you make is kind of its own new business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Brewmance. Exactly. It's like a new, so I've always, this is why I've always come back to indie film. It's just like, because there are really, while there may be barriers in traditional Hollywood system in terms of, making your career, there are no barriers in independent film. You decide you want to make a movie and then you do that. You hire yourself. And I really, really push back against that. Like, no one will give me an opportunity. It's like, give yourself the opportunity, because
grab a camera.
It's like Mark Duplass said in a speech once at South by Southwest, the cavalry isn't coming. No one's gonna, you got to do it yourself. So that's why I've always loved indie film, is just because of that spirit. Nothing that, the only obstacle is yourself, truthfully. It's the only person. So I'm curious how people like, okay, I hadn't drank beer in a while. I'm kind of on this new keto diet, right?
Me too, actually.
Okay.
One of the things that happened to you making the film was that I got very big. So like I couldn't fit into my pants, and the new year rolled around and I was like, all right,
time to go out. So I was on the keto. I still like to drink, so I do a little vodka soda. That's been my go-to. After I watched your film, I got inspired. I literally was just like, I got no beer in my house. I walked over to Yard House, which is not too far from where I live in Pasadena. I said, I want, give me one of those things. Give me a flight where I've got like a bunch of different beer. I was so inspired. I said, I gotta So whatever. I mean, like I've discovered some low carb beers out there, but wow, it's just like I feel like your movie should come with a 6-pack. There's got to be a way, or at least like one of those big bottles of beer with the DVD kind of shrink wrap to it. Are they? I would love to see at the brewery in Long Beach. It would be great if they were selling the documentary. I mean, it's such a great because their story is such an American story. That entrepreneurial spirit, which I think is really truly American more than anything else. And just seeing that all play out. Look, I know I'm gushing, but I swear, if you watch this movie and you're not inspired to go out and drink beer, there's something wrong with you. How have audiences reacted to the film? I mean, I'm assuming they're just going to want to drink beer after they see it.
Well, since it's only been out for a day, I can't exactly tell you, but I will say that the people who've seen it seem to be pretty enthusiastic about it. And, I'll just deviate for a second in the kind of films that I want to make. There's a lot of my colleagues who make these wonderful films that change people's perceptions or like expose the ills of the world. And it's just not my thing. Like I want to make films that I want to watch and that I don't feel like I have to watch. So, the whole thing about craft beer is that the other thing that really struck me about craft beer was just like the community behind it. And this whole sense of we're all in it together. And which I also thought was sort of this subtle political statement. Because I started making this film in 2016, September, November. And then, these last few years have been a bit traumatic. And I used to tell people, why do we don't have to make America great again. It already is great. Look at craft beer. That was my big tagline. But I do think it's kind of true because you see like those home brewers who started making their interesting beers, graduating to become craft brewers. And that same sense of community and cooperation that you never see in business. You never see, IBM helping out SAP or, sharing their code. But with craft brewers, like, in the early years, Fritz Maytag, who's started Anchor Steam, would call up like the brewers from the big breweries and be like, hey, I need some yeast. And they'd be like, sure, come on by. I got some for you. And that sort of spirit of cooperation and togetherness, I think, is still mostly there in craft beer today. And I'm entirely rambling. I'm sorry, I don't know where we're going, but
you're not. No, I just to comment on some things you said earlier. I hear what you're saying. I feel like we live in this hyper polarized time where it's hard to get together on I think we can all be united in our love of beer, right? And
yeah.
I would say also, look, I love a good documentary that has some social relevance that is about a particular issue. But I feel a documentary is a story format that can be about anything, just like animation, right? Animation doesn't always have to be a Disney musical, right? It can be an action, right? So
Waltz with Bashir.
Yeah, like documentaries. There's documentaries. There's pop culture documentaries. There's ones that are socially relevant. There are music documentaries. There's so many different subgenres of documentaries. We champion this we do this annual event called Award This, which you can get more information about at awardthis.com. But that comes into play because I just think you can't just throw like all documentaries into one pile or one section. There are types of documentaries. There are even food documentaries, which I think yours would fit in nicely. But yeah, in our hyper polarized time, I really believe that Brewmance can bring us all together for our love of beer. It has the potential.
Well, I don't know if it's clear in the film, but there's people from different ideologies,
Right.
and but there's something about like the cohesive quality of craft beer that sort of levels everybody out and connects people. It's I you know, I want to, hopefully one of the messages that comes out is that, oh, if our world could be a little bit more like the world of craft beer, because it's a happier place to be.
Well, it's an amazing community that you've highlighted in your doc, and it's just, I'm so like encouraged to see that there's that sense of like we want to lift each other up, right? We want to celebrate our love of beer, and this documentary is a true celebration. It's out now. I just want to let our audience listening or watching know it is out and available now on, I'm assuming, all platforms. You can get it. Is that right?
As we like to say, as my consultant told me, anywhere you buy or rent movies. So Apple and Google Play and Fandango and Vimeo and all those platforms. You can go to brewmancemovie.com and there's a little lead you to wherever you want to go.
Awesome. Well, I will say this. I just have a warning for the audience. That is, do not watch this movie without beer in your house like I did, because literally within the first like 10 minutes of the movie, I'm like, I really want a beer. I can't watch this film without, a frosty glass of beer. So do yourself a favor. If you're going to watch the film, get some beer, because you will be hankering for it.
And if you can, see it with a friend or two.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's definitely, I'm just so glad that just like the genre of documentaries has blown up. It's like, it's one of the most popular sections, if you go to Netflix, they've championed so many great docs, and it's so great to see the genre evolve and be able to tell all types of stories. So Christo, thank you for being on the Film Threat podcast.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it.